Welcome to Jimin Loves Content. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Enjoy watching. The stage lights dimmed into total darkness. Inside the pitch-black arena, the only audible sound was the collective draw of breath from thousands of people, holding their breath in unison. No screams, no shutter clicks, just a heavy, expectant silence laced with raw curiosity. Then a single piano chord struck, soft yet deep enough to vibrate through every chest in the room. A spotlight of pure silver slowly ignited, piercing the dark to illuminate. A solitary figure standing motionlessly at the center of the massive stage, Park Jimin. To someone unfamiliar with his work, the sight might have seemed simple at first glance. Yet an undeniable, invisible magnetism radiated from him before he even took a single step. He stood with the effortless posture of a true contemporary dancer, graceful, precise, and in absolute control of the space around him. The black silk of his outfit ebbed and flowed with the faint stage breeze, while his silver hair caught the light like spun glass. As the bass line began its steady, intoxicating pulse, the recognizable intro to his iconic performance, Jimin opened his eyes, and in that split second, the magic took hold. A dance that gives voice to sound. Jimin doesn't merely dance to the music. He becomes the music itself. Every fluid bend of his fingers tells a story, and every subtle shift in his gaze voices emotions too complex for spoken words. His movements flow like water, yet when the beat drops, he can instantaneously pivot into razor-sharp, explosive power. For a first-time spectator, it is a mesmerizing paradox. How can someone execute such physically demanding choreography with utter perfection, while radiating such delicate, fragile vulnerability? Then his voice entered a crystalline falsetto gliding effortlessly over the heavy instrumentation. Jimin possesses a distinct vocal tone within the global music landscape, a blend of gentle nostalgia, sweet warmth, and a hauntingly beautiful melancholy. When he hits his high notes, it never feels forced. Instead, it floats like an ethereal whisper that strikes directly at the listener's core. Relentless dedication behind the curtain. Yet, the breathtaking beauty displayed on stage that night was merely the tip of the iceberg. Behind 3 minutes of sheer perfection lie thousands of grueling hours spent inside cold, mirror-lined practice studios. Jimin is an unyielding perfectionist. His background at the Busan High School of Arts, where he graduated, top of his class in modern dance, provided him with a formidable technical foundation. But what truly sets him apart is his soul. Long after the other members called it a night, the studio lights would remain on until 4 in the morning. There, Jimin would repeat a single head tilt, a specific wrist curve, or a transition step hundreds of times over. He conditioned his lungs to keep his vocals steady even while spinning through the air. The sweat soaking his shirt was never just a sign of fatigue. It was the badge of an artist deeply devoted to respecting his audience. He once shared in an interview that he never wanted to be just a performer who entertains. He wanted to be the reason someone feels held, understood, and less alone through his music. Why the World Can't Look Away. As the song reached its emotional climax, the stage lighting flooded into a warm, triumphant gold. Jimin spun through the air with a weightless grace that seemed to defy gravity, landing silently before looking straight into the camera lens. That look held immense depth, a raw mix of vulnerability, power, and genuine sincerity. Epilogue. Timeless artistry. The music slowly faded into a soft, lingering resonance. The lights dimmed once more, leaving Jimin standing at center stage, his chest heaving as he caught his breath. Droplets of sweat traced down his cheek, glistening like small crystals under the lingering spotlight. Then he smiled, a warm, radiant smile that instantly melted away the mysterious stage persona, replacing it with the genuine warmth of a dear friend. He took a deep, deliberate bow, holding the pose for several seconds as an act of profound respect for everyone in the room. That night, thousands walked out of the arena carrying something new within them. They hadn't just heard a song. They had witnessed how pain, relentless work, and sheer passion could be transformed into living art. And for anyone discovering him for the very first time, that performance leaves a persistent whisper in their mind. Listen once more and find a piece of yourself inside it. Outside the arena, the cool night air did little to dissipate the collective warmth lingering in the crowd. Among the stream of people heading toward the subway station was Maya, an indie music producer who had only bought a last-minute ticket out of sheer curiosity. She had spent years analyzing sound design, vocal technique, and stage presence, always looking at performances through an objective, almost clinical lens. Tonight, however, her analytical walls had completely collapsed. She pulled out her phone as the train rattled along the tracks. Her mind kept rewinding to those final moments. The way Jimin's vocals hadn't just sat on top of the production, but had woven directly into the emotional fabric of the space. It wasn't just technical mastery. It was an act of complete vulnerability. Unable to shake the feeling, Maya opened her music app and searched for his discography. She started from the beginning. Through her noise-canceling headphones, Lie sounded vastly different from the live arena version, yet its urgency remained raw and suffocating. Then came Serendipity, a track so delicate it felt like listening to a secret meant for only one person. By the time she reached his solo album Face, she realized what made his work so magnetic. Jimin didn't use his music to present a polished, invulnerable idol. He used it as a mirror, exposing his doubts, his chaotic thoughts, and his gradual path toward self-acceptance. For the next 3 weeks, Maya found herself returning to his tracks during her late-night studio sessions. As a producer, she began to notice subtle details she had missed before: the deliberate breath control in his transitions, the precise placement of harmony layers, and how his vocal timbre shifted seamlessly between fragile restraint and explosive strength. One evening, while working on a track that had been stuck in development for months, she stopped tweaking the equalization and simply listened to Jimin's alone. The sheer honesty in his delivery inspired her to strip away the over-engineered synth layers on her own project, leaving only the raw, authentic core of the melody. 2 months after that fateful concert, Maya sat in a small coffee shop in downtown Seoul, reviewing a mix for a new artist she was producing. Looking out the window, she saw a large LED billboard across the street featuring a subtle, elegant promotional video for Jimin's latest release. She smiled, adjusting her headphones. She was no longer just a curious observer who happened to get a last-minute ticket. She was someone whose own creative approach had been fundamentally shifted by witnessing a true artist give every drop of his blood, sweat, and tears to his craft. And as the first note of his song played in her ears, she knew she would never listen to music the same way again. Across the street, the morning sun reflected off the glass facade of the studio building where Maya now spent most of her days. The billboard video looped smoothly, showing Jimin amidst a sea of minimalist lighting, a subtle nod to his evolving artistry. Sitting across from Maya at the coffee shop table was Julian, a veteran sound engineer with 2 decades in the industry. He noticed her looking out the window and followed her gaze. "You've been listening to his stuff a lot lately, haven't you?" Julian asked, setting down his espresso. "I remember when you used to strictly analyze indie acoustic arrangements." Maya turned back, taking off one side of her headphones. "I used to think grand pop performances were mostly spectacle, Julian. Production tricks, heavy backing tracks, distraction. But watching him perform live changed my perspective completely. It wasn't about the scale of the stage, it was about the level of commitment." She pushed her laptop toward him, showing the project file she had been working on. The screen displayed a clean, uncluttered digital audio workstation. "Look at this vocal track," Maya explained, pointing to a single waveform. "Before that concert, I would have pitch-corrected every micro-imperfection and stacked 6 layers of harmonies to hide any hesitation. But after studying how Jimin uses his natural breath, his subtle voice cracks, and his dynamics to convey real emotion, I realized that perfection isn't what moves people. Authenticity is." Julian leaned in, adjusting his glasses as he listened to the playback through Maya's monitors. A subtle, approving nod followed. "It feels alive. It has room to breathe." "Exactly," Maya said. "He reminded me why I got into music in the first place. It's not about crafting a flawless product. It's about having the courage to show up fully in the work." Later that afternoon, Maya walked back into her recording studio. She sat at her piano, placed her hands on the keys, and played a simple, resonant chord. For the first time in years, she wasn't rushing to finish a track for a deadline or overanalyzing market trends. She was simply creating, guided by the same quiet dedication she had witnessed under those silver spotlights months ago. The journey that had started with a last-minute ticket in a crowded arena had come full circle, not just as an appreciation for another artist's craft, but as a rediscovered sense of purpose as the weeks melted into months. Maya's quiet realization within the walls of her studio began to manifest in ways she hadn't anticipated. The track she had re-engineered, the one inspired by the restraint and raw emotion of Jimin's work, became a sleeper hit. Indie blogs praised its unfiltered intimacy. And within the tight-knit soul music production community, people started talking about Maya's signature shift in style, a rare blend of pristine technical space and deep, unvarnished human warmth. That reputation eventually opened a door she never expected. 6 months after her evening at the coffee shop, Maya received an email from a major entertainment label. They were putting together a collaborative project featuring international producers and established Korean artists, a project designed to push the boundaries of genre and vocal performance. Attached to the invitation was a brief list of primary artists involved, right? At the top was Park Jimin, The day of the preliminary listening session arrived on a crisp autumn afternoon. Maya walked into the high-end studio complex in Gangnam, carrying a leather messenger bag with her laptop and a notebook full of ideas. The studio room was expansive, featuring state-of-the-art acoustic treatment, warm wooden paneling, and an imposing mixing console that looked like the flight deck of a starship. Around the room sat senior A&R executives, seasoned arrangers, and a few foreign songwriters. Then the double doors opened, and Jimin walked in alongside his longtime vocal director and manager, in person, away from the blinding arena spotlights and cinematic stage work. He carried a surprisingly quiet, grounded presence. He wore an oversized dark sweater, simple jeans, and black-rimmed glasses, his hair falling naturally over his forehead. He greeted everyone in the room with a polite, genuine bow, offering small, warm smiles to each person he made eye contact with. When the meeting began, the executive team started playing demo tracks, heavy, polished, synth-saturated pop arrangements designed to sound massive on the radio. They were good tracks, scientifically built for success. But as Maya watched Jimin listen, she noticed subtle cues. He nodded along respectfully, yet his fingers tapped a slightly different rhythm on his knee. He was looking for something deeper, something that hadn't been fully tapped yet. "Maya," the lead producer called out, turning to her near the back of the room. "You prepared a concept track, right? Let's hear what you brought." The room fell quiet. Maya felt a brief surge of adrenaline. But as she stepped up to connect her drive to the system, a calm settled over her. She didn't play a track filled with booming 808s or dense, wall-of-sound harmonies. Instead, she loaded a track centered around a muted, atmospheric piano line accompanied by a subtle, heartbeat-like percussion track and vast ambient vocal textures. It was a piece built entirely around space, designed specifically to give a unique voice room to soar, fracture, and express without being smothered by heavy production. As the music filled the room, the atmosphere changed instantly. The heavy studio air seemed to clear out. Jimin leaned forward, taking off his glasses. His eyes locked onto the main monitors, taking in the cadence of the melody. When the track reached its bridge, where the piano dropped away, leaving only a subtle, echoing bass drone that begged for an ethereal falsetto, he let out a soft, breathy sigh of intrigue. When the music faded into silence, no one spoke for a few seconds. Jimin turned around in his swivel chair, looking directly at Maya. "The space in this track," Jimin said softly in Korean, his voice carrying that same warm, recognizable timbre. "It feels like it trusts the singer. It doesn't force me to fight the instruments." Maya smiled, speaking comfortably in a mix of Korean and English. "Because the song isn't meant to show off the production. It's meant to hold the emotion you put into it. I wanted to build something that feels as honest as a live moment." Jimin nodded thoughtfully, a genuine spark of artistic excitement lighting up his eyes. He picked up his notepad and jotted down a few ideas, then looked back up at her. "Let's work on this together. I want to see how far we can take this idea." Over the next 3 weeks of recording sessions, Maya witnessed the reality of what she had observed from the crowd months ago. Jimin's work ethic was even more demanding up close than she had imagined. He would stand in the recording booth for 4 hours straight, singing the same 2-line phrase 40 times, not because he hit a flat note, but because he felt the intent on the third word wasn't quite sincere enough. Yet, despite his grueling standards, the studio environment was never tense. He brought warmth into every session, often bringing coffee for the engineering crew, laughing off small mistakes, and constantly asking Maya for her input. "Do you think this breath sounds too harsh here? Or does it add to the story?" Their collaboration produced a track that neither of them could have made alone, a piece of music that bridged the gap between grand, artistic vision and quiet, personal intimacy. On the night the album was finally released, Maya sat on the balcony of her apartment, looking out over the glowing city skyline. Through her headphones, she listened to the finished master of their song. As Jimin's vocals rose seamlessly above the quiet piano, vulnerable, powerful, and utterly authentic, she realized how far that single, 20-minute performance in a crowded arena had carried her. It was no longer just about being a fan or an objective producer. It was proof that when an artist gives everything they have to their craft, the ripples can change the direction of another person's life entirely, turning a chance moment in the dark into a lifelong journey of creation.